the news, obviously, our last podcast was December 4th. That was 4 days before Phoenix Mercury center Brittney Griner was released in a prisoner swap to come back to the U.S. In a swap for Russian arms dealer Victor Bout. A massive story on the sports front. So massive that I had to write a column about it. If you guys are listening to this, go to ValdosDailyTimes.com and just go into the search bar. The name of this column is called "Brittney Griner Doesn't Deserve Vitriol."
I'm beefing with you right now, Shane. You didn't give me the chance to plug you, man. I was so excited to be like, y'all go check out my dude. I'm gonna sit over here and cry for a second.
While James cries,
sad.
That is ValdosDailyTimes.com, and you can find that column
He's
on there.
Fat.
And you can find that column on there. But my whole thing, obviously,
quickly before you get into it, I'm gonna take that a step deeper, and I'm gonna say, look, once this episode is posted, we're actually also gonna post it on Instagram. Is that cool with you, Shane?
Oh, yeah, that's perfect.
We're gonna post a link on Instagram with it. As soon as this episode is posted, there will be a link. So everybody that follows us on Instagram, you'll be able to also go on there, click a link, and it'll take you right to it.
Right. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, it will be in the description box below.
Absolutely. I'm gonna make sure my boy gets his rep.
Oh yeah. And so, like, this whole situation, obviously a lot of people have been advocating for this. WNBA players, NBA players, fans, us. All of us have been kind of saying that Brittney should be brought home. And that finally happened. After 294 days, Brittney Griner is free. The whole impetus of my column wasn't as much as she was free. It was all the vitriol that she was getting because she was freed rather than...
Hey. Don't sell them too much. Don't sell them too much.
So
make them read it. Read
it. And like I said, I mean, basically, in a prisoner swap, and nobody getting released should be getting hate. That's just my main thought on it.
Mm-hmm.
And Brittney Griner, obviously, she had, I guess what some people would deem as a controversial opinion. But, not to get away from what we're getting into, but, for her to be 294 days in a Russian prison on drug smuggling charges, she was originally sentenced to 9 years. 9.5, right? 9.5 years in prison.
I think I think it was 9.
9, yeah.
And I think they were willing to give her time for what she had already done, which at that point was about like a little over half a year.
Right. And so, like, this was becoming a kind of a dire situation. I want to say Brittney had handwritten a letter to President Joe Biden about, she didn't think, that she would get a chance to come home. It was starting to get that dire for her. But she's back and she plans to play this upcoming season.
Woo. Listen, now I feel like I have a lot, and like I said, Shane, feel free to jump in whenever, but I got a few things I want to say that are pretty frustrating about this. And to your respect, my bro, it's actually going to tie right back into your column. I got some points that I want to make based off of that. Not based off what you said, but based off what you said. It'll make sense in a minute. So, just like you said, everybody wants to talk about, Brittney Griner's home and she felt this way and she felt that way. And one of the biggest things that people want to be upset about is the fact that she's here and, U.S. military veteran Paul Whelan is not on U.S. soil. I want to tackle that first of all. Just like you said, so many people want to look at Brittney Griner and look at her like she did something wrong in this situation to come back home. And the fact that Paul Whelan's not home, people want to look at it like it's Brittney Griner's fault. I need people to understand it was not either one of their choices as to who is going to end up back on U.S. soil and who wasn't. That had nothing to do with them. So everybody wants to say, oh, why does she get preference over, a veteran and this and that and whatever? Everybody wants to build up their excuses in this situation. I want to make sure for anybody that's listening that might not be aware, please get familiar with the fact that the United States, led by President Joe Biden, did try to advocate for the release of Paul Whelan as well. Where it fell short was that Russia wanted specifically a man by the name of Vadim Krasikov. They wanted Krasikov in exchange for Paul Whelan. If you're not familiar with who he is, go look him up. But I'll give you a quick heads up. Paul Whelan was charged with espionage. He was convicted in 2019. He was incarcerated in December of 2018. He was given a 16-year sentence. Quick switch over to Brittney Griner and to what was going on with Victor Bout. Victor was sentenced to 25 years for selling weapons that were supposed to be used against Americans. 25-year sentence. He was set to be released in 2029. So he was going to be released in 7 years, regardless. On the flip side, Paul Whelan was given, like I said, a 16-year sentence. Russia wanted Krasikov in exchange. If you're not familiar with him, again, I will let you know. This man is serving a life sentence in Germany for an open day, broad daylight assassination of a citizen in the country of Georgia. Broad daylight 2019, a Georgian citizen in Berlin. He goes up and assassinates them broad daylight. Do I need to say broad daylight again? Nothing to think about. He was serving a life sentence for an assassination. This is the one person that Russia wanted back, and it wasn't even the United States' choice. Russia says, if you can get us this guy back, we'll let Paul Whelan go. First things first, Joe Biden and the American administration says, we'll give you so-and-so, we'll give you so-and-so. They come up with 4 or 5 different names of detainees that they're like, we'll give you these people instead. Russia says, no, we want Krasikov from Germany. So in order for that to go through, Biden and the U.S. administration had to reach out to Germany and try to convince them, because that's where Krasikov is. They had to convince Germany to let him go. Germany's like, we're not letting him go. So at that point, the U.S.'s hands are tied. So for everybody that's trying to come out and say that the U.S. didn't do their due diligence, they didn't do what they could or should have done, let's get real. They did absolutely everything that they could have done. It is not the U.S.'s fault. They wanted to get that man home just like they wanted to get Brittney Griner home. So let's not sit here and point fingers towards one detainee versus the other.
Yeah.
If you're confused in the matter, again, make sure you go read my boy's column. He covers a lot of this in there. This has nothing to do with Paul Whelan versus Brittney Griner. And that's what a lot of American citizens are trying to do. That bothers me.
Yeah.
Like, it bothers me to no end. It is very troublesome. I'm sorry to keep cutting you off. That's very troublesome to me, that so many people can sit here and say that it's because she's an athlete and this and that. No, it's not. It's not. What happens to be going on is they know what they have. This is all a political thing. And Shane, I'm gonna let you jump in because I have one more point that I want to make about this whole thing. And I think it's something that a lot of people are not aware about. But people don't understand that what Whelan is being held for is a lot more severe in the eyes of Russia, especially in the midst of a war with Ukraine. That man right now is a lot more valuable than a Brittney Griner. So y'all are mad that she's the one that was able to come home, but you're not upset at the fact that what he has done to be there makes him more valuable and they don't want to let him go.
Right. And that's one of the main things for the column is like, it's so much of it is, oh, this is a Marine, this is this, and this is a Marine for a basketball player. Like, hold up. Let's get our facts straight with this. Paul Whelan, while he was a Marine, dishonorably discharged, court-martialed for theft. He was kicked out of Marines. He was kicked out of the Marines. So it's like, is he that honorable if he's been dishonorably discharged? It's like a lot of the whole reaction from this is it's a Marine. He served the country. Brittney Griner hates the country. If you read my column, Brittney Griner does not deserve vitriol. If you go to VelocityDailyTimes.com, you will see what I'm talking about. I think it's an award-winning column.
And leave comments,
will be
y'all.
submitted.
Leave comments.
Yeah, leave comments. Let us know what you think, because
share it all around the world.
Share it with your friends.
Y'all give my boy that love.
Shared it with theirs.
Give my boy that love. Share it everywhere.
Seriously, and people want to make it like one person is above the other. And I think what people need to understand, and I point this out in the column, is that this is a dirty game. These are people that it's a prisoner swap. It doesn't matter like what they did, who they are. At the end of the day, it's people that are detained, and one person got a chance to come back. The other person's still over there. We'll see what happens with the situation. But it's at the end of the day, Brittney Griner's back. It probably will cut short her European basketball career. She had played 6 years in Russia.
Every other country in the European nation is going to want her.
Right. And ultimately, like, Brittney Griner, like I said, she played 6 years in Russia for UMMC Ekaterinburg there. She's one of the top players in the Euro League. Obviously, you know how this situation goes. A lot of players go overseas to play, kind of to supplement their income.
Whole other story.
Yep. A lot of legendary players have played over there. Candace Parker, I think, played in Turkey.
Yeah, most of them.
Sue Bird has played, I think, overseas. Deanna Taurasi, like a bunch of great players have played over there. Brianna Stewart.
I think Diana played in Russia. Matter of fact, she had one season where they paid her to sit out of the WNBA because they wanted to keep her healthy for them.
Right. And so, like I said, it's a dirty game. And a lot of this reaction that Brittney's gotten, I feel like is unfair. It's born from a false narrative. A lot of people, not to give away everything for the column, but basically Brittney Griner, chose she was on record as saying, like, I don't think we should play the anthem at our games. I think we should take that much of a stand. A lot of people took that as an anti-American stance. Now, my issue with that is even if she said that and everybody wants to deem it anti-American, the people that are speaking out about this or up in arms about this, who the hell made you the gatekeeper to any of this? Like, who are you to say what's American and what isn't? Who are you to tell somebody how they should protest? It's like, if you're upset, the last thing you want somebody to do is try to tell you how to feel. It's like,
hey, bro, I got one for you. And not necessarily when I say for you, I really mean for the fans. I'm going to pose a quick question to you. Have you, in the last month, ever heard the name of Sarah Kravanek? Do you have any idea who that is?
No.
All right. So check this out. And to anybody listening that does know that name, you're a step ahead of the game. But here we go. Because Sarah has been all over the news in the U.S. for the last couple of weeks. And here's why. Brittney Griner was released December 8th, right? Here's a crazy thing, Shane. Quick, I'm going to say history lesson, but it only goes back a couple of years or so. On December 8th, Sarah Kravanek was released as well. Check this out. Sarah, American woman, teacher. She happens to be fluent in English and Russian. She manages to fall in love with a Russian guy on Facebook. She picks up on some 90-day fiance type moving across the seas type stuff and moves to Russia to go be with this guy. Guy dumps her. She's like, I'm here now. I know these languages. She decides to stay in Russia to teach English to Russian citizens. While she's there, she has to find a place to live, this and that. She ends up moving in with some people. One of the guys that lives near her, she gets involved in a relationship with this guy. Turns out this guy is abusive. At one point, the abuse gets to the point where she has to wield a knife and fight him off. Says it's in a drunken type thing, like he's drunk and trying to come on to her. She gets a knife, fights him off. Apparently with this knife, she cuts him across the nose. She gets arrested on like some attempted murder charges. He sobers up eventually and says, you know what? It was me. You know, he basically accepts fault on the whole thing. But so Kravanek is allowed to go back to where she's living in Russia at the time, which, can we please make this clear real quick? That already puts you a step ahead of Brittney Griner. You were allowed to go back and sleep in your own bed.
Right. Yep.
So they say that she's allowed to go back home, but she's not allowed to leave the country because she is going to have to go to trial for this. Eventually, she's detained. And Shane, the convenience of all this, she was arrested. So Brittney just got arrested in February of this year, right? This lady, Kravanek, was just arrested in December, a year ago. So only 3 months prior.
Yeah.
Now, the thing to me, big difference between what's going on, or I won't even say what's going on, because at this point, they're both back on U.S. soil. The difference between Kravanek and Brittney Griner, was there ever a time during Brittney's ordeal where she threw the whole thing with Russia and Ukraine into her stuff? No. But once Brittney was released, one of the main things that Kravanek, who was released the same day, came out and said, and I quote, "I just fell into a system at the wrong time because it came on the heels of starting a war with Ukraine. They used this as leverage."
Yep.
So it's okay for you to say this. But when all these other Brittney Griner fans want to say the same thing all across the country, all around the world, they say the same thing. we need to shut up, because just like you say in your article, y'all make sure y'all go to the Valdosta Daily Times and check that out, and also check out all of our outlets because it's going to be posted there too. Y'all want to hate on her. She never made it about the war. She never made it about anything, but y'all want to suddenly throw shade at her because of the anthem,
which is in protest of the Breonna Taylor case, where she was, she died at the hands of law enforcement. So it's like, so let me get this straight. A person protest in our country is free to do.
First
We
Amendment,
have
baby.
that freedom to do that.
First Amendment, baby.
So let me get this straight. So she can say, I don't think we should play the anthem. Now, she goes on to say, I don't mean that in any disrespect to our country. My dad was in Vietnam. He was a law officer for 30 years or whatever. I do have pride in my country. This is also a person that represented Team USA, won a gold medal.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get, I don't mean any disrespect to our country, and that I feel like we shouldn't play the anthem before our games. We should take that much of a stand. How does that turn into she hates America, she hates America, she hates America?
Mm-hmm.
And then she was over there for like, really, I mean, granted, the law is the law, but she still had a small amount of cannabis oil, whatever.
Right.
And yet the first thing you see online is people talking about how she should rot and she should still be over there and she should still be this.
Send her back.
Like, I'm like, let me get this straight. So if we apply American sensibilities to this, and this is America, and this is happening, if she gets pulled over for, a dime bag of weed, she should rot for that?
No.
Y'all act like she killed somebody.
And I gotta point out, look, I'm glad you mentioned that this, a lot of the vitriol that's coming is based off of what she said about the anthem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so one of the biggest things in this country is the freedom of speech, right?
Right.
In the early 90s, with, artists like Too Short and Uncle Luke and, NWA, we had the introduction of, the parental advisory stickers and having to censor music and this and that, right?
Right.
You have your choice whether you want to listen to that music or not, but the country decided that if this is deemed inappropriate, we're going to censor this music, right?
Right.
We're going to decide what you should or should not listen to, or what you should or should not hear on open airwaves. Why does this country not take the time to acknowledge the fact that the anthem that everybody's protesting has a third verse that specifically talks about demoralizing slaves that oppose anything?
Nobody want to talk about that, though.
That gets ignored. Why? Why don't we talk about that? When people say they want to adopt another anthem or try to craft another anthem because the one that has been in place for 200 plus years openly acknowledges punishing slaves that try to get out of the situation that they're in, we're going to ignore that. But at the same time, we're going to say, if you don't like this country, you should just leave.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
The land of the free, just not.
Wrestling reference. They're not ready, Shane. They're not ready.
But,
they're not ready.
Like I said, I mean, there's people that, like I said, it's people that the narratives have been spun so much that nobody really even knows what's real and what isn't. And I really feel like for this column, for me, in my response to Brittney being released, is just, why is she getting any hate at all? She didn't do anything.
Her. Right. It's not her.
It's like, if you're going to be mad, blame President Biden, blame the administration.
To me, it's a step past that. To me, it's not even them either, because like I said, there's been documentation so far over the last month that says they went out of their way to offer other people.
Right. And
They fought
you
to
have
try
to,
to,
like
they
you have
fought
to
to
play
get
that game.
Wheeling out. They
It's
fought to get
not
Wheeling
who
out.
we want, it's who they're gonna give you.
Right. They fought to get Wheeling out.
Right.
And Russia said no. So we're gonna sit here. So it's like, in my mind, I want to go to all of these people and be like, so if Biden and his administration had managed to convince Germany to give Krasikov up, you send this convicted murderer back to Russia in the midst of a war to get Whelan back home, everything's good? Or would you use that as an excuse to be like, oh, Biden's soft, he really let them send a murderer back? Either way, that dude is gonna lose. Either way, he's gonna lose.
Right. And I just think in the situation, like, it's a dirty game. You're talking about people basically being bartered, and it's a dirty game. I mean, now granted, Victor Bout for Brittney Griner is one of the most lopsided trades you could think of. Like my cousin put it best. My cousin Duran is listening to this. I love you, man. It was a bit of a rough Christmas Eve. My cousin had a medical emergency. He's doing well right now. So
thank God.
And like I say, he's a big brother to me. My cousin Duran. He lives out in Dallas. Ex Army vet, 20 plus years in the Army.
Pookie, we love you, man.
Love you, man. Glad that you're on the mend.
We love you, brother.
And he told me, he basically said that this trade was like Udonis Haslem and future picks for Luka Doncic. That's basically what just happened. So if you're gonna be mad that the merchant of death is going back to Russia, if you're gonna be mad about that. But under no circumstances should Brittney Griner be getting hate for this. And hopefully once she is able to play, I hope that she gets the ovation that she deserves. I know that first bucket will mean a lot.
Oh man, come on.
But at the end of the day, man, it's like, that's a situation that you don't want to be. Nobody wants to be in a situation where they're held in a foreign place, kind of against their will. They're in prison there. Who wants to deal with that? Like, how would somebody feel if it was them or a family member? Like, you have to kind of put yourself in that position as far as people's psyche and that kind of stuff. Imagine the mental scars.
We can't even go into like the cultural or like the emotional damage that was taken on.
Right.
Brittney, if anybody follows basketball the way that we do, especially if you follow women's basketball, you know that one of Brittney's signatures was her dreadlocks. And while she was there, she cut them off. And the reason that she cut them off, and this is why I say, why do you have any sort of hatred towards Brittney? She cuts them off, and now she has a very low haircut, very low fade. And when they asked her why she cut them off, she said, because when I wash my hair, it's so cold here that my dreadlocks freeze. And that was too much to deal with. She was under the impression that she was never going to leave either. So don't put this on her. She thought she was still going to remain there. So she cut her hair off to get accustomed to her new climate. She thought she wasn't going to leave for like 9 years. So it's not her. That wasn't a choice made by her. Let's get real on that.
It's displaced anger, man. And like I said, I mean, a lot of this, like I said, now that she's back, a lot of this will be forgotten. I'm sure she might get some boos in some arenas, whatever. But at the end of the day, if any person that's reasonable, sensible out there, think about it. If it was your significant other, think about if it was your parents, your grandma, anybody, one of your best friends. that's detained in a foreign country. It's like you want whatever to happen to get them back. And so she happened to get, she was fortunate enough that she was part of this trade to come back. Now, the political ramifications, that's for other people to talk about.
Right.
For the basketball ramifications, hopefully she can come back and still be productive and still do her thing.
Winning cures everything.
And Phoenix gets her back as a teammate. Her wife gets to see her again. Like, it's the best possible scenario for her in this situation. She came back in one piece. Now, mentally, I'm sure she's got some hurdles she has to clear.
Oh, she's destroyed. Yeah.
Because, I mean, even when she was on that plane and they're interviewing her, talking to her, you could tell. You could see it in her eyes.
They told her. They told her, like, the one thing I loved about that was they were like, yeah, we told her this is like an 18-hour flight or a 12-hour flight or whatever, you should get some rest. And they said, no, she spent a majority of that flight awake, talking to all of the flight attendants, learning their names, asking their life stories, wanting to talk to them. And she said, they said that she told them, yo, I've been locked up hearing nothing but Russian, not knowing if I was going to live to see tomorrow. I'm talking to everybody I can on this plane. And they said she stayed awake for a majority of the flight just to talk to people and just to be personable with them. Yeah. Like, respect it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, and even though this situation was dire for her at times, I do want to point out a particular heartwarming part, and then we'll get to another part of this of our podcast, and then we'll wrap it up. But the coolest part, obviously, Brittney going to Baylor, and being from Texas in that situation, being around Texas, that kind of thing. Barbecue is big, and the best story I think that came out of this is Brittney's Russian lawyer, just to make her feel a little more at ease, tried to basically make, slow cook some brisket for Brittney Griner. He did that for her just to try and make her feel more at ease and more at home. Now, it's not Texas brisket, but when she did get back stateside, her and her wife were treated to some barbecue. I think that's a really cool story. I can't wait to see, if there is more revealed about this from Brittney herself, or if something's, done of this that we could consume as far as documentaries, a book, something like that.
It's gonna happen.
If it does happen, that'll be cool. But first and foremost, definitely glad that she's at least back in one piece and that she's safe. That's more important than any documentary, any information that we could get from her experience. So I just think that, now that she's back, she can get back to living her life, which is how anybody should be once they've been detained and they've been freed. All you want for that person is they can go back and live their life how they want to. Hopefully they don't make the same mistakes. It's like, you have some people that, they're not as lucky. There's people that are in jail right now for crimes they didn't commit. People that are on death row for crimes they didn't commit.
Let's go.
And so, in this situation, like, you don't get to tell people, like, based on your opinion or what people are leading you to believe. Like, nobody's the gatekeeper in this situation. She shouldn't be getting hate for being detained. She broke some laws, but she didn't kill nobody. Saying she deserves to rot? Come on. Just because she got released over a Marine, but y'all don't want to tell the whole story on that.
You've got a woman that, self-defense or not, inflicted injury on someone else with a knife.
Yep.
And got released the same day she did.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like nobody's gonna say that person deserves to rot or anything like that. I just think that's a real cold thing to say. And the main reason that you say that is from a false narrative that Brittney Griner hates America.
Yeah,
she doesn't hate America. It's like the problem.
She doesn't hate America. she hates a lot of the standards that America is based on.
Right. And
there's
that's what it
nothing
is.
wrong with that.
It's like a lot of people have more hate toward the person that's protesting rather than what it is that they are protesting. That's the problem.
Man, say that again. Come on now.
That's the problem. So in this case, y'all have heard this before. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
If you've made it this far, thanks for making JWJ a part of your day. In part 3, we tackle the issue of mental health in the NBA as we discuss John Wall's piece in the Players Tribune, Zion Williamson opening up about being criticized about his weight and injuries, and Tyrell Terry retiring at 22. Keep it locked.